It is one of the most effective, cost-efficient strikes in the history of warfare. And it suggests something brand new, a brand new technological breakthrough in warfare that's going to change war forever. Something extraordinary has happened in the last few days, not just for the war in Ukraine, but for the history and future of warfare.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It's intense. It's monumental. It is of the utmost importance, and I'll try to put it into appropriate historical context for you. So what did Ukraine pull off a couple of days ago?
They were able to do strikes inside of Russia.
Deeply inside of Russia.
Deeply inside of Russia.
As far, north as near the Arctic Circle.
Oh.
Just incredible. And what did they strike?
I don't know, actually.
They struck critical Russian aircraft, including their long-range bombers that carried nuclear weapons. While the results are not exact, but they might have incapacitated some 15 to 30% of the Russian long-range bomber air force. Not only limiting the ability of Russia to strike at Ukraine, since some of these aircraft are used to launch missiles against Ukraine, but also undermining the Russian nuclear capability. Can you imagine that? And how many casualties did Ukraine suffer in this extraordinary series of attacks, Sam?
It's a war with robots, as you like to call it.
Right, zero.
Zero, right.
It was drones, a series of drone attacks.
An unmanned aerial vehicle or unmanned...
Oh, Syria.
A series of drone attacks that cost about $1 million. And although, again, it's hard to get intelligence from inside Russia, but Russian damages are likely to run into the billions of dollars. It is one of the most effective, cost-efficient strikes in the history of warfare. And it suggests something brand new in at least 2 or 3 different ways, a brand new technological breakthrough in warfare that's going to change war forever and put the strongest nations of the world, including the United States, China, Russia, on high alert. That's how momentous this is.
That's a little scary.
Yeah, it's very scary. But first, let me put it in some historical perspective.
Okay, do it.
Now, when we think about the history of warfare, we think about epic clashes, right?
Right.
Of troops, We think about the incredible Spartan resistance at Thermopylae. George Washington, at Yorktown defeating the British forces. The colonial wars in Africa, the trench warfare of World War I. We also think of the great military commanders, right?
Right.
Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Napoleon Bonaparte, Genghis Khan.
Do you hear that? That's your soda.
Oh, is my soda exploding?
Twist your cap real quick.
Well, hold that. I'm getting to the
Okay, you're good. I don't hear it anymore.
big finale here.
Sorry.
I forget where I am now.
You said Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan, Shaka Zulu, Gustavus Adolphus, Blackjack Pershing of World War I, Field Marshal Montgomery of World War II, George Washington, Stoneman Norman Schwarzkopf of the Gulf War under George H.W. Bush. All of this is legitimate and significant. But overshadowing all of this, what really defines warfare, you know what that is, Sam?
No.
Technology.
Okay.
Technology is what creates warfare. Way back, like 5,500 BC, the domestication of the horse changed everything, right?
Right.
It led to the modern cavalry, and until very recently, most transportation was driven by what?
Foot.
Horses.
Oh, that's yes. That's
Yes,
what I meant.
of course. Then we had the Bronze Age, right? Which totally changed warfare because you now have these metal daggers and swords. Then the Iron Age, which created even more effective kinds of weapons, swords, daggers, battle axes. Then we had during the medieval times the invention of the stirrup, the knights on horseback, chainmail, other kinds of armor, which completely changed warfare. Then we had knights defeated by the crossbow, the Battle of Agincourt in 1415. And then, of course, everything changed again with the invention of gunpowder, right, Sam?
Right.
From, 12th, 13th century onward. Handheld weapons and, of course, cannons and mortars. Then in the 19th century, we had the invention of automatic weapons, including machine guns that could kill vastly more efficiently than any previous weapon.
This is scary stuff.
This is what defined warfare,
Right.
technology. Then in World War I, we had the introduction of the tank, right? The submarine became to the fore, and of course, the first significant use of aircraft. And then by the time of World War II, the aircraft carrier had supplanted the battleship as the primary seagoing weapon. And of course, we had all kinds of technological developments like the delayed action fuse, radar guided munitions and aircraft, and of course, ultimately, the development of atomic weaponry, which really defined relations between the superpowers ever since 1945. But now we have something new. Asymmetrical warfare via munitions that do not directly involve human beings except remotely. Think how frightening that is. You can wage destructive warfare without risking any lives on your part. You can rain terror on other countries. Now, what do I mean by, do you know what we mean by asymmetrical warfare, Sam?
Tell me.
That means minor powers or minor forces can wreak great damage on vastly superior forces. We saw that in 9/11, right?
Right.
A few unknowns, a few people with box cutters brought down the World Twin Towers, the World Trade Centers, killing thousands of persons. They damaged the Pentagon, if not for the courageous, self-sacrificing acts of some of the passengers on another plane. They might have wrought damage on the U.S. Capitol. Asymmetrical warfare. How much was spent on that incredible destruction? Almost nothing.
Right.
No significant weaponry was used. Yes, there were a few casualties because these were suicide missions, but a tiny fraction of the casualties they saw. Asymmetrical warfare. But that was waged, in essence, by non-state actors who sacrificed themselves. Now, in this Ukraine war, we have seen a new kind of asymmetrical warfare, Sam. And that involves nation states battling one another.
With robots?
With robots, with drones. And I think the future is going to be no more ground soldiers.
So is this it's kind of confusing to me. Is this a good thing or a bad thing?
I haven't gotten to that.
Oh, okay.
I haven't finished describing it.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
So we have asymmetrical warfare waged by, in essence, robots, whether drones or other robotic weaponry that don't require a human presence and could wreak enormous destruction. Now, This is a game changer in the Ukraine war because it greatly raises the costs to Russia of continuing this war. You know, it's one thing for Putin to wreak destruction on Ukraine. It's another thing for destruction being wrought on his own nation.